Let's take a look at tone and mood. Tone is the attitude of the speaker toward his subject and audience. How does the author, speaker, narrator feel about what he's discussing? Hamilton is often passionate about what he's arguing in the cabinet battles. He's often passionate and has positive romantic feelings toward Eliza and arguably Angelica. Sometimes he's a friend to Burr and sometimes he's an adversary to Burr, but he never seems to be completely on board with Burr's ideas and philosophy, even when they first meet. He likes Burr, but he doesn't really completely believe what Burr's saying, as we see. Of course, tone can be complicated with, I like this part, but not that part, and I'd agree to this, but not that, and it's all a little complicated. Sure. How do we decide what somebody's tone is? Because that's always the big question. I feel like Hamilton kind of likes Burr's idea, but not completely. Well, how did you get that information? Because feels like, of course, is not something that we can teach or replicate. In fact, we feel that way, all right, if it's the performance, sure, we've got his, the sounds he makes, the body expression, we've got lots of stuff. But if we're just reading this, as with, every book out there and so forth, we're going to look at clue words, language, formal, informal. Take a look at the words. Are the words kind of positive, kind of negative, kind of suggestive? What kind of attitude are we getting from this person's speech patterns? What kind of image are they trying to project? Do they sound like a lawyer? Do they sound like a teacher? Do they sound like somebody off the farm? What kind of imagery is being offered? Is his stare like a frozen glacier? Or is his stare like a smoldering fire about to blaze up into an inferno? You can get so much from imagery, which is any kind of description that paints a picture in somebody's head. Specifically, imagery relates to sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. I mean, I was describing visual pictures, right, of the glacier and the fire, although those also, emit cold or heat. But the five senses imagery can really paint a picture in our heads of what kind of attitude, or using a metaphor or image, what kind of attitude is being shown here. Details. What is mentioned? He tapped his fingers on his leg. Well, that suggests impatience, and the author bothered to tell us this. So why do I think he's impatient? Because he tapped his fingers on his leg. Because as the two characters are talking, it's mentioned that a watch is ticking, which suggests time is passing. What kind of details is the author bothering to tell us? What is the author not telling us? If somebody is really, really attractive but is not described, then maybe we're not so convinced that they're attractive because we weren't given enough evidence about it. If somebody is very attractive and they're described in great detail, but their clothes aren't described, maybe their clothes aren't important here. Whereas if they dress well or dress badly, that can make assumptions in itself. Connotation. Diction means word choice. And connotation is the suggestiveness that comes with a word. A knife, if I looked it up in a dictionary, it would say cutting implement. That's denotation, just what it literally means. But connotation is that a knife suggests something is scary, threatening, violent. If I use the word knife in my book, even if it is just somebody cutting vegetables in the kitchen, it suggests scary, violent, creepy things are happening. There's different connotation to he slunk across the floor, he slithered across the floor, he glided across the floor, even if they all mean to move slowly. So which kind of words were used and which associations do they have? If he slithered across the floor, then that's kind of an implied metaphor that he's like a lizard or something without feet, which makes him seem kind of slimy and distrust, somebody we shouldn't trust, and so forth. Whereas if he, glided across, that makes him seem more ethereal, fairy-like, like an angel, like a delicate ballerina, like a snowflake, so maybe we're more trusting of this person. So we can find clue words to tell us the tone. The last one here is syntax. What kind of sentence structure? Do we have short sentences that suggest fast, that suggest a lot of pressure, a lot of rushing, or do we have long, slow, clunky sentences, which can really slow things down and even make them more boring? All right, so we're still doing tone, and all of these things I brought up, word choice, details, imagery, sentence structure, all contribute to our understanding of tone. Tone can be proved. How does the author feel about this character, and how do we know? Because of all these clue words that I found. And we'll try that out soon. So I talked about connotation versus denotation. We know what a house is, but a home is warm and cozy, and it feels safer. Rosy cheeks versus red-faced. Thin versus skinny. Bossy versus assertive. Chestnut hair versus dirty dishwater hair. All of these push us in different directions. They have different emotional signification, even if they mean the exact same thing, clearly. Sentence structure. What are we emphasizing? What part of this sentence is the important bit where we're focusing? I married him versus he married me. Clearly the same thing happened, but we've got a different emphasis because whoever is doing the verb tends to be more active and feel like they're more active, more a part of the story, more important to the sentence. So which sentence do you write? It depends what you're trying to push. We regret to inform you of the forthcoming foreclosure of your mortgage. Our previous attempts at communication were heretofore unacknowledged. Well, that sounds clearly like a lawyer, clearly like somebody who's using big words. What do the big words do? They intimidate the other person. We are so powerful and so educated that you will never beat us. It doesn't sound very regretful. It doesn't sound warm or friendly or human or caring. It sounds very distant and like a big institution. Our previous attempts at communication were unacknowledged. Again, it's a very safe statement. Not we tried to contact you. It doesn't even say that. Just not you didn't pick up. If you say you, that can have a sense of blame with it. If you say I, you're talking about what I tried to do and wanted to do and suggest my attitude. If you leave both of those out, we're not saying that you are to blame, and we are not saying that we are to blame. We are just saying that communication didn't get answered. That's factual. That's on the safe side of things. All these things you can do with language. Passives are attempts at communication were unacknowledged. Make it sound like it's somebody else's fault. The money was lost. I'm not saying I lost the money. I'm not saying you lost the money. I'm not saying Bob over there lost the money. I'm saying the money was lost. Makes it seem like it's the money's fault. Doesn't point the finger at anybody. Yes, the rocket was exploded ahead of time. Yes, millions of dollars were lost. Yes, the project, was an utter disaster, but I'm not saying that I or you did any of this. Lawyers speak that avoids blame. You can do so much with your sentence structure. Come back soon, y'all. Very casual, friendly, slangy from the countryside, or doesn't have to be the countryside, but somebody who is not using formal English, probably to appear friendly and casual, speaking from the heart, as opposed to Seven, which clearly is not speaking from the heart in any possible way. Beyond the verdant valleys and craggy peaks, a small house was nestled in a wood, along a winding blue river. The sentence even sounds winding, like we're exploring the entire valley. Let's go here and there, and here and there, and here and there. Nestled, a friendly, sweet word like a baby bird. Winding, blue, verdant, craggy, all descriptive, all mildly positive, if not crazy positive. There's a lot you can do with the language. In his chamber, the doctor sat up in his high bed. He had on his dressing gown of red watered silk that had come from Paris, a little tight over the chest now if it was buttoned. On his lap was a silver tray with a silver chocolate pot and a tiny cup of eggshell china, so delicate it looked silly when he lifted it with his big hand, lifted it with the tips of his thumb and forefinger, and spread the other 3 fingers wide to get them out of the way. His eyes rested in puffy little hammocks of flesh, and his mouth drooped with discontent. He was growing very stout, and his voice was hoarse with discontent. The doctor had once for a short time been part of this great world, and his whole subsequent life was a memory with longing for France. What is the tone, would you say? Well, I can see a few different things. I mean, he looks big and hulking and like he doesn't fit well among the pretty silk dressing gown and the delicate china cup. The cup is too small for his big hand, the robe is too small, everything's a little tight, everything is ill-fitting. So the description makes us feel like he doesn't fit here, just in the physical description. How is he feeling? He is feeling discontent. How do I know? Because it said so twice. Discontent, discontent. What does he want? Well, once he was part of the great world. Great. Sounds wonderful. And since then, he's filled with longing for France. Additional evidence of that is that he's wearing the dressing gown from France and drinking the chocolate from France and, mentally flashing back to when he was happy in France. So we've got the imagery, we've got his actions, and we've got it directly saying, all emphasizing that he wishes he was still in France. Today is very boring. It's a very boring day. There is nothing much to look at. There is nothing much to say. There's a peacock on my sneakers. There's a penguin on my head. There's a dormouse on my doorstep. I am going back to bed. All righty. It's a humorous poem, isn't it? How do we know? Because of the incongruity. Starts out by saying everything is boring, and in fact, stanza 1 has very boring language, treating us to so many repetitive phrases and uninteresting verbs that we are snoring. But then, even using this very straightforward language, the exact same sentence structure, there's, seems like it should be boring, but the fact that in fact there's a peacock and a penguin and a dormouse emphasizes that this is actually silly, unusual, unexpected. So those are the words I'd use for tone. Right? I believe this is from The Book Thief, which was a delightful novel that I definitely recommend. I think it's for teens. Alrighty. First the colors, then the humans. That's usually how I see things, or at least how I try. Here is a small fact. You are going to die. I am in all truthfulness attempting to be cheerful about this whole topic, though most people find themselves hindered in believing me, no matter my protestations. Please trust me. I most definitely can be cheerful. I can be amiable, agreeable, affable, and that's just the A's. Just don't ask me to be nice. Nice has nothing to do with me. Reaction to the aforementioned fact. Does this worry you? I urge you, don't be afraid. I'm nothing if not fair. Of course, an introduction, a beginning. Where are my manners? So, what kind of mood does Death have? Yes, the Grim Reaper dude. There's a lot going on here. One thing I notice is he seems very uncomfortable, uncertain about how he's supposed to do things. He seems very removed from humanity, which has led to him not knowing how to put things together. Oh, right, I should really introduce myself and do a beginning to this story, he says at the end of this. Likewise, he's not talking to us in a way that really makes sense. He's not talking to us the way people talk to each other. First the colors, then the humans. Takes till sentence 3 till we even know what he's saying. Why did the author do that? I would say to emphasize that he's not human, that he's not like us, that he thinks differently and speaks differently, and we are supposed to be weirded out and confused when we read this. It's supposed to be disconcerting. Okay. Please trust me, I can be cheerful. He is trying to make people feel better. There is direct evidence that he wants people to feel okay, to be reassured. However, his phrasing, again, is so off-putting, so weird, so confusing for us that I don't think we walk away feeling reassured. We walk away feeling disconcerted and with the idea that he wants to be friendly, but doesn't necessarily know how to do it. What other impressions do I get about this person? Well, he likes categorizing things. Here is a small fact, reaction to the aforementioned fact. Let me go through the A's about how I can be cheerful. He really likes sorting things, organizing, which makes sense for somebody who isn't totally comfortable around people. His other option is sorting things out through relations and ideas. So there's a lot going on with an unusual character, and you can put it all together and say that his tone is maybe helpful yet disconcerting, helpful yet very removed from humanity, very remote, very unaware of how humans talk. Mood. So tone is how this person feels about this person or something like that, whereas mood is what I, the reader, feel because of this. He's trying to be friendly, but my mood is disconcerted. He's trying to be bored, but my mood is laughing. He's miserable, but my mood might be, really looking down at this guy and judging him. Sure. So the way you, the reader, feel while reading the thing is the mood, like suspense when something scary might be about to happen. Answer me! Did you steal something from the fridge? Answer me! The tone is angry, but the mood could be scared or apprehensive, something like that. Tone is an attitude. It's a hidden message that we have to find in the text. The wedding was in a beautiful old cottage perched by the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. Well, wedding is positive. Beautiful is certainly positive. Perched, like a bird, makes it seem a little silly and fantastical. So, okay, those all add up perfectly nicely. And the mood is how I feel about it. Okay, that's nice, but it might be some other mood if I'm apprehensive about what's going to happen, or curious, or surprised. Sure. Tone versus mood. how the author feels about a character could be very different than how we feel about a character. Maybe the author says this is the greatest person ever, and we're going, ew, this was not the greatest person ever. The tone suggests what the author wants us to feel, why the author chose to write this. The emotion the author wants us to have, but what emotion we have could be very different depending on the story. And there have been very clever things done before where somebody is so nice and so friendly, and yet we get this kind of sense that something is off here and this person has a horrible secret that we're going to find out about later. Or the person is really mean and really rude, but it turns out underneath he just cares too much, or something like that. And again, the clever writers have absolutely done these contradictory characters with contradictory moods and tones for us. The girl remembered little from the raid at Okiden, I guess, in which she had been captured. She knew her parents had been killed. She had no idea what had happened to her brothers and sister. Much of what she had experienced had been so horrible she simply shut it out of her mind. Well, maybe this is supposed to be sad. Maybe the author feels bad for the girl, but we, the reader, are feeling very distanced. This is so vague, so lacking in details that the character seems stunned, distancing herself, not processing this, not facing this. And we lose sympathy because she's so distant, because she's not showing us any scary, frightening, emotional scenes that we could connect with. She's just in this very distant place, so we're sitting here in a distant place too. You notice how little detail there is in the sentences. You notice how generic the word choice is. Remembered little. She knew her parents had been killed. No detail. No reason that the brothers and sister and parents are differentiated. Nothing positive about their lives before this that would make us care. Much of what she'd experienced had been so horrible she'd shut it out, but again, if you don't tell us what, we're not going to really connect with that sympathetically, are we? When he realized he was still in one piece, he knew that at the very least he must be completely flat, with his face peering out of his own bottom and his brains leaking out of his ears. Well, okay, that obviously just sounds ridiculous. What is the tone? The author wants this to be funny and ridiculous. The author wants us, the readers, to be entertained, to find something unusual going on, to be surprised. Do we think this is funny? Your choice. We might. Or we might just find it cliche and not very exciting. The next minute, Winn-Dixie looked like a furry bullet shooting across the building, chasing that mouse. He was barking and his feet were skidding all over the polished Pick-It-Quick floor, and people were clapping and hollering and pointing. They really went wild when Winn-Dixie actually caught the mouse. Well, this is very lively, very exciting. There's a lot of movement, a lot of emotion, and because there's so much excitement happening, we, the readers, become excited. Okay. Barking, skidding, clapping, hollering, so many action verbs are really jazzing this up. Furry bullet. That gives us an image in our heads. Shooting across the building, chasing that mouse. Sure. They went wild. Could be more descriptive, but wild is at least an exciting word. Yeah. So if we go on and have a look at, I don't have much in our textbook because our textbook just says, yeah, take a look at what the tone is. But I thought we could take a look at some actual bits of Hamilton. Give me a second here. All right. Come on, computer, share the thing. Alrighty. One last time. And what do you know? We could take a look at the mood, couldn't we? Do the same thing. Mr. President, you asked to see me. I know you're busy. What do you need, sir? Well, what is the tone here? The narrator is staying out of this. Burr is not telling us what we should be thinking and feeling. And just to back up a moment, when Burr does tell us, Burr tends to be very frustrated, right? How does this guy, this nobody from nowhere, how does he get all the love and attention? So Burr is being incredibly annoyed by this. However, that would be the tone, but the mood, how we feel, is we tend to be admiring of Hamilton even as Burr expresses how annoying he is. So that would be an example of the contradictory tone and mood. Well, here we have no narrator, and Hamilton and the president are being very formal. So that's the tone. And as for the mood, we're kind of lulled into an everything's fine, nothing exciting is going to happen, business as usual. We're at least getting a breather after whatever happened in the last song. I guess nothing exciting is happening. And then I want to give you a word of warning. And suddenly our mood has become a little tenser, hasn't it? And Hamilton's mood is a lot tenser because we're just watching this show. We're safe, we're fine. But Hamilton could be in big, fat trouble, couldn't he? Sir, I don't know what you heard, but whatever it is, Jefferson started it. And Hamilton is feeling crazy defensive and also very self-assured, he thinks his techniques will work. Whereas we have a very different mood from that. The audience tends to burst into laughter because we think that that's a ridiculous thing to say. He sounds very childish. Jefferson started it. Oh, come on. And you don't even know what Washington wants to talk about yet. You're just, making excuses. We who are outside can see that Hamilton's being ridiculous, even if Hamilton really can't see it. Alrighty. More contradictory tones. Jefferson resigned this morning. I would call that understated. It's said in very simple language. And Washington doesn't give us a hint how we're supposed to feel about that. I think in the show as well, he just says it pretty directly. But to Hamilton, this is a really big deal. Like, he's been fighting this guy over and over and over. This guy's the head of the people blocking him from doing every single thing he's doing. And then poof, he's gone. He's vanished. Oh my gosh. The world is full of happiness. And then in 1 second, the world is going to be filled with misery, right? We, the viewers, are probably not terribly excited, terribly angry, whatever. Jefferson isn't our opponent, and there certainly might be Jefferson fans in the audience for that matter. This is Hamilton's problem, not our problem. We can sympathize, but we're mostly just watching all of this take place. Okay, then. Whatever you say, sir, Jefferson will pay for his behavior. Hamilton is feeling vengeful, and once again, we're a little more amused than other takes on the situation, but sure. Jefferson will pay for his behavior. I'm so excited. I'll use the press. I'll write under a pseudonym. That was pretty common at the time. You'll see what I can do to him. More fun with multisyllabic rhyme, of course. Yes, he resigned. You can finally speak your mind. Hamilton is emoting all over the place. He's thrilled. He's excited. His world has gotten so much more interesting. And Washington's attitude is, no, you're not getting it. You're not listening. Dude, take a moment, take a breath, try to focus. And we, the viewers, are likewise getting the impression that Hamilton is really missing something here. No, he's stepping down so he can run for president. Again, Washington says everything in a very neutral, very understated way. And that's something else that writers can do: contrast. Contrast makes the two extremes both seem more extreme, makes the calm one seem calmer and the energetic one seem more energetic. Well, Hamilton is just going off in all directions here. I mean, he is just talking his head off before he thinks a single thing, right? Ha, good luck defeating you, sir. I'm stepping down. I'm not running for president. I'm sorry, what? Hamilton finally stops, finally listens, finally lets the words catch up with him. One last time, relax, have a drink with me one last time. Let's take a break tonight, and then we'll teach them how to say goodbye. To say goodbye, you and I. Washington seems friendly, soothing, helpful. He uses words like relax, have a drink. One last time is a teeny bit sad. The words sound sad, but he's making the decision he wants to make. So, he's saying goodbye to so many things, but it's a positive goodbye. It's a goodbye that he wants to say. Let's take a break tonight. He really does seem to be trying to make Hamilton feel better based on all these words. But once again, Hamilton is just not ready to digest this. No, sir, why? Hamilton is protesting. Hamilton's world is crumbling. Everything Hamilton has accepted as a certainty at his job. Jefferson is the annoying one who's always stopping him from doing what he wants. And Washington is his protector who wanted him for this job and is on his side reasonably. But he's just suddenly going to lose Washington. Sir, with Britain and France on the verge of war, is this the best time? But as far as the people are concerned, you have to serve. You could continue to serve. I don't think we believe that the people need Washington. I think we believe that Hamilton needs Washington, and Hamilton is just stunned and in shock from this. Right? Even as he keeps saying, you can't resign, he means, if you resign, my life is going to be a lot more complicated. Washington is still sounding positive. If we get this right, we're going to teach him how to say goodbye. You and I makes them sound like a team. I was just talking about getting rid of responsibility. Well, if you say you and I, you're taking responsibility. You're stepping up. You're saying this matters. This is what I want to do here. Sure. Mr. President, they'll say you're weak. No, they'll say we're strong. Your position is so unique, so I'll use it to move them along. Hamilton still sounds like he's protesting. Still sounds like he just can't accept this. He's still in denial. Whereas Washington, in that he's got a speedy answer for every comment that still sounds calm and controlled. Really sounds like Washington has thought of the things, has made his decisions. Why do you have to say goodbye? That sounds even more childish, even more lost. Just, I don't get it. And Washington, by contrast, sounds very mature, very thought out about everything. If I say goodbye, the nation learns to move on. It outlives me when I'm gone. This isn't about me. This isn't about Washington's America. This is about America that can handle life without Washington and knows it can handle life without Washington. Quoting the Bible sounds authoritative, going back to others' week's lessons, but also sounds calm, mature, thoughtful, full understanding of the text. I want to sit under my own fig and vine tree, a moment alone in the shade, at home in this nation we've made. The words sound very satisfied, very relaxed. Alone, I've earned this. This is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. And then we transition into the speech. There's so much going on here, so many moods, so many emotions that you can find in just one song. So why don't you go out, get a different song, and see what you can find.